Over the last few months, especially since April, the WWE have lost a lot of their creative employees. What this apparently means is that Shane McMahon is now more involved than ever. One of the main reasons for this is that Shane was a huge creative influence to the Royal Rumble this year, very well received by fans, and one of the major driving forces behind Drew McIntyre's rise to the top. For more on this and more exclusive information, this is the Raw Review. Our first match of the evening was the returning Apollo Crews defending his United States Championship against MVP, and really trying to win another United States Championship on top of that. This is a short match, but is quite a good one for Apollo Crews particularly, even though, for example, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, while on the outside, do not get particularly heavily involved other than taking a few bumps. Apollo Crews beats MVP very conclusively, retires the current United States Championship, and will continue to wield the new one introduced by MVP. After this match, MVP challenges Apollo to a rematch at SummerSlam. We're going to get a lot of rematches at SummerSlam. Sasha Banks and Bayley are gloating backstage. They introduce a video essentially highlighting how incredible they are, but it has been hijacked by an on the warpath Asuka still wearing a Kabuki Warriors shirt. Kairi Sane apparently was at these tapings, but she's not under contract, and as such she did not wrestle at all, or in fact even appear on screen outside of this package. Adding more confusion to the Raw Women's title picture, we have the possibility of a rematch between Asuka and Sasha Banks. However, Shayna Baszler also throws her name into the hat by punching Sasha Banks in the face. Kevin Owens' KO show references Shane McMahon from the off, introduces Ruby Riott, who is able to give a very emotional statement on the situation between herself and Liv Morgan. Liv does come out to answer the questions posed by Ruby Riott and essentially says it might just be too soon for a Riott reunion. However, it's about 2 minutes later that the Iconics get involved and we have a Riott reunion because both of them slap Kevin Owens. I would probably Riott as well. One thing worth noting before getting onto the match is that Kevin Owens is very different from how he used to be, and a key part of this is one of the backstage segments featuring him and Ric Flair. Now, Ric Flair would eventually result in challenging Kevin Owens to a match with Randy Orton next week on Raw, which will probably get me tuning in, I've got to be honest. But what we're seeing is a Kevin Owens who is very reluctant to turn his back on people, who is trying to get people back together. He is not divisive, he is not the same guy. He may still turn on Jericho. The match between the Iconics and the reformed Riott Squad is brief, as has been every Ruby Riott match since she came back, coming in at around 3 to 5 minutes. However, it is a win for Liv Morgan and Team Riott after a roll-up victory. Good luck for both women. We do need to see some movement going forward now though, and they have run out of time a little bit. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton have their face-to-face with Ric Flair by Randy Orton's side. It is a very in-depth promo, going with a lot of real-life situations that Randy Orton has been guilty of, and of course the very popularised situation that Drew McIntyre has had where he was fired. That has been a real point of conversation for Drew McIntyre's entire run since he returned. It definitely piqued my interest even more, and I do recommend checking this one out. Following on from this, Nia Jax insults Pat Buck by being anti-ginger and gets suspended for her troubles. We have a triple threat 24/7 championship match between Shelton Benjamin, R-Truth, who stole the belt earlier in the night from Benjamin, and Akira Tozawa, who does come away with the title here thanks mostly to ninjas. Now, I would be bored of the ninjas by now, but none of them can take a bump, so they're just ragdolling around and it's highly entertaining. We have a sneak preview of Shane McMahon's upcoming Raw Underground Fight Club, but that's not what we get to just yet. Dominic Mysterio challenges Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam. If you've been following these videos and my live streams on Sportskeeda, you would have known ahead of time last week that this was going to be the case. At this point, almost every video on this channel contains some exclusive news, so if you haven't subscribed already, please remember to now. Sasha Banks has a match with Shayna Baszler, and we can't have good things for too long. The match is incredibly high quality, very back and forth in a very believable way, but Shayna is shown to be the monster that she is capable of being. Unfortunately, the match is thrown out when Asuka arrives to attack Bayley on the outside, completely ignoring anything happening in the ring, and yet still somehow getting the match thrown out. confusing. I'd like to get back to this feud. Shayna Baszler was supposed to be the original opponent for Asuka at SummerSlam, but as I've mentioned on Twitter, the entire Raw Women's division is being booked very on the fly at the moment, and most of the people involved in it do not know what is going on from one day to the next. It's a very confusing prospect. If you want to keep up with instant reports like that, please do follow me on Twitter at Colihue. One final thing worth noting is that the entire women's division picture here as regards Sasha Banks, Bayley, Shayna Baszler and Asuka was filmed out of sequence, and you can really tell. Raw Underground is officially announced with Shane McMahon exploring the Fight Club atmosphere. We have a ring with no ropes. We have dancing girls, which I can't say I'm really particularly behind. We also have a lot of people in masks, because if you're not performing, you can still get fined for not wearing a mask, even while Shane McMahon MCs the whole thing. Dancing girls don't have to wear masks, but actual wrestlers who are there as part of a crowd can be fined for not doing so. And have been. There's a couple of people who I feel could really get over with this format. Dolph Ziggler is one of them, who is introduced a bit later, but Shane McMahon also introduces someone who has only appeared previously at the Greatest Royal Rumble. He seems suitable for it as well. Samoa Joe is someone I'd love to see involved in this. We have separate singles matches for a tag feud, which is a WWE trope at this point. We have Angel Garza taking on Angelo Dawkins, and then Andrade takes on Montez Ford. Unfortunately, Montez Ford passes out both before his match and during his match because they let him wrestle apparently. Afterwards we go backstage when Angelo Dawkins has just had the news that his partner was poisoned. Bianca Belair takes the opportunity to come out, calmly take off her earrings and beat the holy hell out of Zelina Vega. This feud, and in fact this storyline, was planned a while ago, but only actually activated now because they ended up just keep going with the Street Profits and Viking Raiders feud because of how well received it was. Bianca Belair has been waiting her turn. We're going to see a lot more of her now. A new faction of hooded black figures threw petrol bombs at some electrical equipment. More on that story later? Apparently not. Seth Rollins is our main event segment for the evening, and he, like many people before him, attacks journalism and rumours, and then comes after Tom Phillips. Naturally, as a Tom who works in journalism, I feel personally attacked by this. Tom Phillips, however, is protected by Samoa Joe, who stands his ground, to the point that he actually stands his ground during an entire commercial break. This is because it takes this long for Dominic Mysterio to find a kendo stick and wail on Rollins and Murphy, throwing them out the ring, breaking the thing on their back. It looked intense. Seth Rollins accepts the challenge for a match at SummerSlam. Samoa Joe goes back to work. Finally, back at Raw Underground, the Hurt Business arrived to take over. They beat down everyone involved, and it looks like they're going to be making this their home. It could be that even next week we don't see Shane McMahon while they are establishing dominance here. Bobby Lashley will do extremely well in this particular format. Give me him and Brock Lesnar in a ring with no ropes. Raw this week was wild, and that is both a good thing and a bad thing. We saw a lot of very unpredictable things which were worth checking out. We also saw a lot of unpredictable things that were not worth checking out. The new faction, which was teased by the WWE, appeared briefly, and apparently there were some electrical issues throughout the night. We saw Raw Underground, which really does depend on your opinion. There are some aspects I like, there are some aspects I don't, and I feel this is why we have sort of divided Twitter poll, where our leading number is a 35% good, and our second number is a 25% bad, completely skipping over the okay category. This was a divisive show. What I am happy with is that some developing stars got wins, for example Apollo Crews and Liv Morgan. However, we once again did not see Mustafa Ali, and I don't want him to vanish, as I've mentioned here. Let me know what you thought of Raw down in the comments. I've been Tom Colihue, and thank you for joining me.